What a performance, brother. Grant Dawson, you got this one right. Jared Gordon, this was a tough fight. This was a very tough fight. So I think it was fair that I picked Jared Gordon in this one. But Grant Dawson did something that nobody has been able to do to Jared Gordon in his career, which is submit the man. He submitted him in the third round of the fight. It was a war of attrition, but Grant Dawson did something that he normally has not been able to do. And I don't know if we can attribute this to him joining American Top Team and fighting with Thiago Moises and Thiago Alves on a daily, right? Or if this is just Grant Dawson, just the true breed of him. This man is just 3 rounds of nonstop relentlessness. If he can grab your leg, it's game over. He only needs one leg. Grab it, he's getting you down, he's putting you on your butt, he's taking your back, and he's going to try to choke you out or ground and pound you to oblivion. Those are what we're doing here with Grant Dawson. He did it for 3 rounds, brother. And the problem with his last fight is that he was only able to do it for 2 rounds until Ricky Glenn was able to take that 3rd round and be in control. Cardio was not a factor in this fight, not an issue, I guess I should say. How dangerous is Grant Dawson after this performance? Because this is the test right here that solidified in my mind. Oh, yeah. There's no doubt in Grant Dawson. He said, put respect on my name. I'm putting all the respect on Grant Dawson's name. You don't do what you did to Jared Gordon without now immediately entering top 15, top 20 contention. So what do you think?
Very much so, Derek. Dude, Dawson is crazy good, man. And the hands were looking good too, man. This dude, he's getting sharper and sharper with each day, and it's really showing, man. The fact that he has the gas tank to keep going, 1 through 3, all 15, never taking a second off. Very scary, but what's even scarier is he's so good on the ground. Even if he slips, like we saw, even if he slips in the fight, he can get to your leg, and it's basically over after that, man. This dude needs a split second, a moment of an open door, and he's taking that advantage and rolling with it, man. And Dawson, very much, I mean, for me, he's probably the most slept on 155er we have in the division. There's a couple other dark horses out there, but Grant Dawson is one of them. And with his fighting style of full pressure, full power going forward, he's going to be a handful to deal with. The only problem that I see, though, is there's a lot of the same type of fighters that are ahead of him, that have been through those deep waters, that have been through those grinder matches. And it's going to be time to see if Grant Dawson is ready to face those killers. But either way, it makes for a very fun and close fight each time. So you never know who's going to win in the Dawson fights. Makes it more exciting. What do you think? Is he going to fare well against those other grinders in the division coming up?
Well, it's interesting, and I'm going to answer your question with a question right here, because Grant Dawson is this grinder in the lightweight division, and it is fair to say, so there's these 2 comparisons we often make in the UFC, right? They say it used to be lightweight was the best division in the roster. Now we're saying bantamweight's probably the most talented. However, lightweight is the hardest. And I wanted to ask you if we can maybe extrapolate on that a little bit, because if the lightweight division is the toughest division to win in, not the most talented, but the toughest, does that mean that Grant Dawson and this style that he's going to have to take, because he said it, he's like, hey, folks, just take notes. This game plan I did right here, this is what I'm doing against everybody. So, take notes, please, because this is what I'm going to do to you. If he can make his way up to the top 15, top 10, top 5 with this style in the hardest division in the UFC, does that necessarily mean that the lightweight division is the most talented if it's the hardest?
No, I think it's hardest in the fact that their lightweight is the perfect example of where power and skill and speed meet. Like you're that prime area where all of those things can blend really well. The problem that the 145ers, the 135ers, the bantamweights that have is they just don't have the same kind of power that the 155ers can. Yeah. Now, that being said, the 155ers don't have the speed, don't have the technique, and the smaller you get, and this goes all the way literally from your white belt in kickboxing, karate, and all this stuff, all the way up to the pros. The smaller the guys, the more technical, the faster, the better they are, but the bigger, the more power. Same thing, 155 has that kind of middle ground, skill, power, offset, kind of that whole package. They really are the whole package of the UFC. And I think that's why it's a harder division, because all of them are powerful, skilled, strong, fast going forward. Just not as there's some of them that are more of a grinder style. So, like Grant Dawson, we're going to be continuously grinding forward, motion. Where in the bantamweight, we have more of the flashy strikers that are going on, the more technical, which I think takes a little bit more technical skill. See what I'm saying? Or you feel me? Or you got something?
That makes sense. Because I was trying to see, I was like, what's the difference? I was like, I feel like we're using the same words for these things, but but that does make sense. You have the bigger, stronger dudes at lightweight. It is a tough division, especially when you look at this top 15, it's stacked with killers. Grant Dawson, he's he's fit of that archetype of the Gregor Gillespies, of the Matus Gamrots. Armin Sarukian. Those are kind of all the same mold, right? So I hear what you're saying when you're saying, well, there's a lot of dudes in front of him that have the same exact style. But I do think Grant Dawson, his striking was pretty phenomenal when he kind of put it on display. I had already said it going into the fight. I thought that he was going to be the better striker between him and Jared Gordon, but it was interesting that Jared Gordon's plan was, let me keep the fight on the feet and try to outbox Dawson while Dawson is trying to keep shooting for doubles, shooting for singles. But he was hitting some spinning shit, you know what I mean? He was throwing beautiful kicks. It was a well-rounded performance by Grant Dawson. And like I said, this was the performance that put him on the map, I think, because if you know anything about fighting, you know Jared Gordon is not a man to be toyed with, not a man to be played with, and Grant Dawson did nothing but put respect on Gordon's name. So big win by Grant Dawson. He is now 6-0-1 in the UFC. He's still undefeated, man. So shout out to him. Undefeated in the UFC, I should say.